Hello children, how are you? I hope you are all well and enjoying your online classes. Today we'll have the second part of the first chapter, that is 1857 Revolt. You have already learnt that the revolt was easily suppressed by the Britishers, but it could not suppress the spirit of the Indians, and it shook the very foundation of the British Empire in India. And the Britishers had to introduce many changes to continue their rule in India. First, I will tell you about the company, East India Company's rule. East India Company's rule came to an end. Before the revolt, the power to govern the country was in the hands of the board of directors. But after the revolt, the board of directors was abolished. The power to govern the country or to look after the administration was transferred to the British Crown. The Secretary of State was given the power to govern the country. The Secretary of State was to be assisted by a team with 15 or 16 members, and Secretary of State was a member of British Parliament. That means the power went in the hands of the British Parliament. The Governor General was replaced by Viceroy, and Lord Canning became the first Viceroy. These changes were introduced with the East India Company. Now, in 1858, Queen Victoria, she was the Queen of England during the revolt, made an announcement which was made public by Lord Canning at Allahabad on 1st November 1858. Now, what was the announcement? The Britishers would not interfere in the social and religious matters of the Indians. All the people, Indians and the Europeans, would be treated equally. A general pardon was given to all those who had taken part in the revolt, except those who had murdered some of the British officers. The British would promote works of public utility in India. Then, what happened to the Mughal Empire and the office of the Peshwas? After the revolt, both these great rules came to an end. You know that the Mughal Empire was established by Babur in 1526. And with the death of Bahadur Shah Zafar, he had taken part in the revolt and he was sent to Rangoon. He was arrested and he was sent to Rangoon. There he died. So with the death of Bahadur Shah Zafar, the great Mughal dynasty came to an end. Same thing happened to the office of the Peshwas. Nana Sahib, who was the adopted son of Bajirao Peshwa II, fled to Nepal after the failure of the revolt. And with this, the office of the Peshwas also came to an end. Now, what relations did the British maintain with the princely states? Earlier, the rulers of the princely states were not allowed to adopt a successor or an heir to the throne if they did not have a natural heir. But after the revolt, they were allowed to adopt an heir to the throne. Many of the rulers of the princely states had supported the British to suppress the revolt. So this was the reward for them. Doctrine of lapse was abolished. And the Britishers also promised that they would not interfere in the local matters of the princely states. But they had to restrict their armies. That means they were not allowed to have a huge army. Then Queen Victoria, she took the title of Empress of India in 1876, and all the rulers of the princely states became her junior partners. So this happened with the princely states. Then the Britishers came to India. You know that they came to India as traders and they started exploiting the Indians. Now this exploitation became more prominent after the revolt. India literally became a dumping ground for the British goods, and the raw materials were taken by the British for their companies in England. And the salary of the Secretary of State and his team members was also taken from the Indian revenue, which was a big blow to the Indian economy. The farmers were made poor. They were impoverished because of the wrong economic policies of the British. They increased the land revenue. Then, what changes were introduced in the army? You have learned that in the British army, the number of Indian soldiers was much more than the Britishers, and that gave them courage to revolt against the mighty Britishers. Now, the Britishers changed this. The number of British soldiers was increased in the army. All the strategic areas were given to the British officers. All the sophisticated weapons were also under the control of the British. Not only this, discrimination was promoted on the basis of caste, creed. The soldiers were not given any newspaper, journal, or national publications so that they could not get any news of what was happening in the rest of the country. This way, the Britishers tried to control the Indians. The most important thing about the revolt was that the Britishers realized that the Indians, both the Muslims and the Hindus, they had perfect unity. And if the Britishers wanted to continue their rule, they had to break the unity between the Hindus and the Muslims. So they followed a policy of divide and rule. They played the Hindus against the Muslims. They played the princely states against another princely states. They played the subjects against their rulers. Not only this, they used the attraction of government services also. They encouraged hatred among the Hindus and Muslims so that they could never challenge the British rule and they could never revolt against the British. But it did not suppress the spirit of the Indians. This revolt gave rise to nationalism. The Indians continued their struggle till they got independence in 1947. The sacrifice of the rulers, Queen of Jhansi Lakshmi Bai, Nana Sahib, Bahadur Shah Zafar, became a source of inspiration for the Indians and they continued their struggle. So this was the story of the first war of independence. Children, I hope you have understood this. I will be sending you the worksheet. Till then, take care. Goodbye.